A lot of people are able to elevate their own ketone levels through things like intermittent fasting, low carb diet. When you run a lot, if you run for a couple hours or bike hard for a couple hours, you're going to burn down your carb stores and your body's going to start making ketones. So a lot of people have this general experience with like runner's high or that feeling where you're at work and maybe you like miss a meal and you're just like really dialed in. Yeah. You're in flow. And it's weird. Cause like, oh, shouldn't I be like hangry? But no, I'm really sharp and dialed in. A lot of people have this intuitive sense of like, they've been accidentally in ketosis or they were maybe it was on purpose, but they didn't know that they were there. And so this is a way to get that same feeling, but in a bottle.
3, 2, 1.
Hi, I'm Michael Brandt. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Health Via Modern Nutrition. Today on Ever Forward Radio, I talk about metabolic health, personal biohacking optimization, and ways to connect what you're doing in your physical athletic life to your work life and career. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, I was telling you, I tried this for the first time this morning.
Yeah.
PreWorkout. I had my PreWorkout. And like I was just saying, a lot of times with pre-workouts or any kind of thing you take, I mean, hell, even just with coffee, you can tell what you're on. Like, oh, I know that I took something.
Yeah.
This stuff, God's honest truth, clean. I keep saying clean and pure. Like I was in the gym and I just noticed that I feel like so on. Like there was no overstimulation. There was no like tingles from a lot of pre-workouts. It was just my brain's on, my body's on. I loved it, man.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it. There's a reason we're all in on this. Like ketone's super interesting.
Very interesting.
My vision on it is...
We can all do red, please, for the colors. Yeah, sorry, man.
My vision on it is it's the next nutritional primitive. When you think about CBD, whey protein, collagen, omega-3, like there's these new building blocks that come up once or twice a decade, and there's billions of dollars of businesses, different brands, different product lines all off it. Ketones are the next one of those. Well, and it could, because it's like, it's this amazing thing.
Yeah.
It's
like
you
just pour it in, it does its thing. And you're like, whoa, I'm really, let's dive all into that.
Yeah,
like
man.
You've got an incredible background. I mean, you definitely are the person this is for. I mean, you're out there living it, working it, breathing it, doing all the things.
Yeah. I don't think I'm totally unique in that regard, but I think I have some interesting stories to tell. And I think there's a lot of people who are trying to go get after it in life. And everyone should be trying to dial in their nutrition, their hardware, their lifestyle, all that stuff. So
that's what we're about, baby. That's what we're about. Well, HVMN, this incredible product, ketone, like I said today, tried it, amazing. And what I like about this is that I feel like I can use something that is going to optimize my day, my training, my health, without having to adopt an entirely different diet or lifestyle, which I feel a lot of people maybe get cornered with when trying something in their diet or even trying a supplement. Like, oh no, I'm not the carnivore girl. I'm not the keto guy. How important is that for you guys? And what's kind of the origin story behind that?
Yeah, that's huge. And why we're even talking about ketones now is people have been thinking about the keto diet for a long time. And I think a lot of people are maybe familiar with this idea of eating really low sugar so that your body is forced to make ketones. And a lot of people, they feel really good when they do that. Although the diet's really difficult. And as you're saying, it requires a lot of behavior, lifestyle modifications in order to do that. So,
I tried going full keto for a while and not for me.
Not for you.
Not for me. No.
Did you like aspects of it, or it was kind of...
Honestly, 85% of the whole experience was subpar for me. I would have moments of like that mental clarity or just feeling kind of like clean and sustained. But it was very apparent for me. And actually, most people in my family, to be honest, well, except for the diabetics in my family, I like carbs. My body likes carbs. It runs really well off carbs, and just everything else about it just was not for me. But I did it for about like 4 months.
Yeah, that's commitment to even try it out. A lot of people like aspects of the ketogenic diet, but not the entirety of it. There's aspects of that people like that have to do with the way that ketones feel. all the other things of having no carbohydrates or restricting your diet in other ways, that part is really hard, really tough. Most people don't like it. But the ketone itself is super interesting. The human body has always made ketones. For 300,000 years, your body is able to make ketones and it's able to metabolize ketones. In fact, on the savannah, 200,000 years ago, we probably had higher levels of ketones because we were eating more towards a ketogenic diet. I don't know if we were doing full, pure ketogenic diet, but there was no peanut butter cups on the savannah, right? Like there's no Slurpee. We were eating less carbs. We were burning off. We were walking 4, 5, 6 miles a day. We were burning off excess carbs. Our bodies were making some ketones. There's also carbs around, right? There was grains and berries and stuff, but we were relatively lower carb diet, had more circulating ketones.
Yeah.
That's always been true. So like the human body knows how to make ketones and knows what to do with the ketone. In the last 100 years or so, scientists have started to really look at the ketone molecule and say, like, this is really interesting. In the early 2000s, DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Project Association, they really started taking a serious look at ketones, and they partnered with the National Institute of Health, NIH. They identified, they made the first like ketone that was like outside of the body. They made a ketone and they did some of the basic science around it to show, hey, this turns into cellular ATP. If people remember their high school biology, their really mitochondria.
My undergrad was in exercise science.
Okay.
Do we want to go down the Krebs cycle path or?
I'm down to go wherever you want to go. I think like
someone's going to troll me. It's been too long. I'm out. No.
Yeah. High level ATP is the energy currency of your cell. Adenine triphosphate is the energy currency of your cell. You can make it from a few different sources. The dominant one that we usually use is glucose, blood sugar, carbs, all kind of the same thing. It all becomes blood glucose and goes into your Krebs cycle and turns into ATP from glucose. Ketones are this other thing that can also turn into ATP, and it turns into ATP more efficiently. It uses less oxygen to do so, and it creates less metabolic stress as it does so. So this is why in the early 2000s, DARPA was really interested. They had this program called Operation Metabolic Dominance, which I love. That's going to be the name.
Like a metabolic health enthusiast, like wet dream.
Yeah. That's going to be the name of the biopic one day that we'll make.
That's incredible. Clearly, optics weren't of concern for them for that project.
Yeah. I think they toned it down over the years, but that was definitely what it was called at the start. And the idea there was they looked at a few other things, but ketones were the ones that stood out as, okay, cool. Like we know the keto diet can produce ketones in the body. What if we isolate a ketone directly? Okay, interesting. It doesn't require as less oxygen. It goes through a different pathway. It's super efficient. How does that apply to different other contexts? So DARPA did this cool proof of concept kind of in the early 2000s. In 2015, 16, when the keto diet was really like trending big, my co-founder and I, we were looking at the keto diet. We were like dabbling in it. We were doing intermittent fasting. I did a 7-day long fast. I've always been a runner. I was getting into like I'm like a 6-minute mile marathon guy.
You're savage. Yeah. Which I really want to get into more of that.
I've loved it. I mean, it's my favorite thing. And I've basically been dialed in on whatever you want to call it, performance optimization. And so in 2015, 16, keto diet's trending. I'm wearing my continuous glucose monitor. My co-founder and I looked at each other and we're like, why don't we go direct to the ketone? Like, why don't we actually make the ketone? So we dusted off what DARPA had done in the early 2000s. They'd kind of done the basic science, but it was like super expensive product and it was insane taste. It was like undrinkable. And they just left it on a shelf to collect dust. In 2016, and then we actually launched in 2017, we productized it. We were the first ever to make a ketone drink. We then re-engaged with Special Operations Command. We have the former chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Peter Pace, is a advisor, senior advisor to the company. So we re-engage with the elite operators, do a lot of business with Tour de France teams, all that stuff. That was in 2017. That product that we launched was still quite expensive. Like we made a lot of progress from where DARPA had brought it to begin with, but it was still quite expensive, quite crazy tasting. And a couple months ago, we just launched V2, version 2, which we're calling Ketone-IQ.
This guy right here, right?
Yeah, where we figured out a way to bring down the cost a lot more. So it's $4 a shot right now and does all these great things. So exciting times.
Like overall, the premise I'm getting behind you guys' business, the research, the product is how do we, like, there's something here we know to just be true, that the body does and the body works well off of, and we can have these more or less, I'll say, universal experiences of cognition, memory, focus, energy, performance. It goes on. I love how you guys kind of just, well, how do we just get to the finish line? How do we just go to the end, make that happen for people so that, to kind of bring it full circle, I was saying earlier, of you don't have to adopt a totally different lifestyle or change your diet very regularly, very consistently to get this end result. How can we just provide this experience for people? Walk us through the experience for people, please. Because I think that's a really important concept for somebody when we're trying to really get clear on our health wellness goals. It's that feeling is really what we're ultimately after. It's not as much, I think, the number on the scale or what we see in the mirror. It's like what that represents. What does this represent?
Yeah. A lot of people are able to elevate their own ketone levels through things like intermittent fasting, low carb diet. When you run a lot, if you run for a couple hours or bike hard for a couple hours, you're going to burn down your carb stores and your body's going to start making ketones. So a lot of people have this general experience with like runner's high or that feeling where you're at work and maybe you like miss a meal and you're just like really dialed in. Yeah. You're in flow. And it's weird because like, oh, shouldn't I be like hangry? But no, I'm really sharp and dialed in. A lot of people have this intuitive sense of like they've been accidentally in ketosis and, or they were maybe it was on purpose, but they didn't know that they were there. And so this is a way to get that same feeling, but in a bottle. I want to be careful not to say like, hey, you can't just like eat a donut and then drink ketones. It's not productive to live like, you shouldn't be like, I don't know, smoking a cigarette as you're sipping ketones. It's not this like magical panacea thing. It's like, I would say it does generally complement an active lifestyle with reduced refined sugar intake. Like do all of those things. But I would say get a good night's sleep, like do all those things. And this is another tool to have in that toolkit. And look, no one's perfect. And if you slip, if you have a really fun weekend, Monday morning, like go for a jog, sip some ketones. The
disclaimers of all disclaimers. I love it.
Yeah.
But it's so spot on. I mean, not to cut you off there, but I so many things that I talk about on the show, and whether that's a product, a service, or a story, it's not meant to be the end result. So if I wasn't trying to like say that, to the listener, I wasn't trying to say, hey, here's an end result you can just get to without doing the work or negating some other things maybe that you want to do or don't want to do. But it's just a unique perspective.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to be able to just drink and feel runner's high. Like that's neat. And I think it's interesting if you roll out the map of all the different psychological ways that you could feel. It's like, okay, you have this whole map and okay, nicotine gets you here. Psilocybin gets you here. THC gets you here. Ethanol, alcohol gets you here. Like there's all of these states that you can be in. Yeah. And what's interesting here with ketones is that it's opening up like a new pocket on the map where it's like, it's not really like caffeine. It's not really like nicotine. It's like its own area where like you feel this own certain type of way around it. And I don't think that things like that really come around that often. I think that was what really clicked for me of like, hey, there's a lot of things. I don't know. We could be selling acai berries. We could be doing all sorts of different things. But what was interesting to me is like the new sensation that we're able to deliver. That seems like a special moment in time. Like let's push. Yeah.
I mean, but you do get runner's high. You do get a lot of stuff. I mean, I was getting to know you a little bit more, and like I said, you're a savage. Like you're like just like you're this incredible, amazing endurance athlete. You've accomplished so much. I mean, why? First and foremost, why? How did this get started? And kind of what came first, chicken or the egg? Your ability to excel in these endurance sports or the ketones. Was this a heavy influence in your success in that world or the other way around?
They definitely complement each other. My personal interest in being high output definitely led me to ask some questions about what do I want to do with my career and my life. Got me towards ketones for sure. I definitely drink ketones when I'm running, race day, big training day. So one hand washes the other in that regard. I would say, I don't know, my competitive advantage with running is I just like it. It's like, it makes me, I like smile. Yeah. I was just like, I like embrace the suck and I just love it. I can't explain it. Like, I also like deadlifting and stuff. And I think some people really embrace the iron, right? Like people really love that. And I do too. Just for me, running, it's like my happy space. It's like that temple,
I've been there. I was sharing with you earlier. I used to be in the military. I was in the Army active duty for 6 years and hated running every second of it. But the Army made me good at it. Not quite as good as you, but especially once I would pass that like 4 or 5 mile mark, it was just floating. It was easy. I mean, I could tell like I'm going to be in pain later probably, you know, especially like mile 9, 10, whatever. But there's something really unique to that.
I'm glad you said that, because a lot of people, I don't know if they ever even pushed past that point. And I remember at some point when I started getting really into running, and my friend, he said something like that. It's like, oh yeah, after like, you know, after half an hour, it really starts to feel good. And like, I don't know if I'd ever ran more than a half an hour on purpose. And there's this point, there's this threshold where it seems, because a lot of people like 4 or 5 miles is like a good run. It is a good run, but like there is that point where like 4 or 5 miles in, it's like you've just gotten loose. And then like the next 4 or 5 miles really where it gets magic. And I think not everyone necessarily pushes through that point. I will say it takes a certain amount of fitness to be able to run for long enough to where it actually starts being fun. Like, I don't think anyone's going to go like couch to 5K and like have fun on their first day. It's like, but once you can actually do 5, 10K longer than that, and you're able to just lace up, go for a 10-mile run, some of those miles can feel really magical.
I agree. And that's such a great kind of analogy for life and so many things is we know this thing before us is about to be difficult. We maybe don't enjoy it, but we can acknowledge the benefit on the other side of it. But we push and we push, but we just don't get close enough to that threshold to actually like have things sink in and to get the reward benefit there. How would you say that has carried over into, I mean, because you're running an incredible company here. I know this isn't your first endeavor. And I mean, so how has that, or has it, that kind of runner's threshold analogy carried over into your ability to push through in business?
Yeah. Those are the really 2 major threads of my life. And I'm glad you asked that. Like, how do I connect across from running into business? One thing that really struck me with running is that you don't do it all in a day. It's all about consistency. It's all about, there's an interesting stat from Strava, like the running app that a lot of runners use, that even for professional marathoners, that 80% of their training is slower than race pace, than their marathon race pace. And it's interesting. So, okay, you're doing a lot of miles. Like when I'm peak getting ready for a race, I'm doing like 70 miles a week. And wow. And those miles are not like necessarily blazing fast. It's like, it's a lot. Some of them are like, you do some track sessions, you do need to be speedy, but like a lot of the miles, you're just putting in the work. You're just showing up in like, it's like a 12-mile run, slower than your marathon pace. But you do that like Wednesday morning, Wednesday night, you lift weights. Thursday morning, you get up and you go for like a recovery run. Friday, you could do a track session. Like you stack on the consistency, and there's no one day that's like make or break. If you really absolutely can't run one day, it's probably not going to throw you off course. Although I try to not miss a single day, but it's all about that consistency, that compounding. And I think the same thing with business. It's like, there's so many decisions that need to just stack up and compound in the right direction that there's no one day that's like make or break. You feel really stressful. Sure. Oh my God. But I think that's taking the pressure off of me, where it's like, I don't take too many meetings in a day. Like, I'm not trying to be Hercules on any given day. I'm just trying to do like 3, 4 high impact meetings, high impact decisions, high quality decisions. And if I feel like I'm stretching too much, if I was like, there is such a thing as overtraining. There is such a thing as like, hey, if you're trying to train for a marathon and you're running 20 miles a day, it's counterproductive. Like, you're going to rip your body up before you even get to the start line.
Diminishing returns. Absolutely.
Yeah. Diminishing returns are even counterproductive, because you're just overdoing it. Like, you got to dial it back. And so finding that pacing, like just within a run, as well as within like a 12 or 16 week training block, like you don't sprint your first mile of the marathon. Don't sprint the 5th mile of the marathon. Like, try to hit like your red line and just hold it for 2.5 hours, 3 hours. It's like right there at that red line. So find that red line. Don't try to be Hercules and like exceed your red line off the starting block. Don't try to like go public in your first year of running a startup. Don't try to hire everyone all at once. Like, take it into pieces, 1 mile at a time, and like that consistency. And what I found from that as the company has grown is that so much what I can do as a leader is to impart those values to other people. Like a lot of what I do is like let the team know it's okay to relax. Like we don't have to do it all today. Like I want people to be fresh tomorrow too, and the day after and the day after. And a lot of people say it in business, you know, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Like everyone says that in business, but I think I have like a little special ethos to be able to say that when I'm actually a marathon runner.
No, but for me it is.
Yeah.
What's it been like interacting with so many different businesses, organization, truly walks of life as this research, this product, this end result has grown? Because I mean, you're working with, I know incredible biooptimizers like Ben Greenfield. I mean, you're working with Special Warfare Division, Spec Ops, the SOCOM guys, right?
Yep.
You're working with so many different people that for me, maybe just because I kind of dabbled in all of them, like I see, like we're all after the same end result. It's just a different path. So as a leader, as a business owner, how do you translate that message to all these different walks of life when ultimately you know they're all after the same or similar thing, but you can't have the same delivery?
Yeah, I think that's a really good insight because as well as talking to special operators, we're also talking to the buyer at Sprouts, or we're onboarding a new marketing agency, and everyone's after the same thing, whether it's someone who's buying on Amazon for their metabolic health, or someone who's buying on the feed because they're racing a triathlon, or someone's thinking about if they should procure this into their division in the military. So you have to be truly multilingual. I don't know how else to say it. I think that's really important as a founder or any kind of leader, is to be able to take that same pearl of what is it that you're trying to do. And then you need to be able to speak all of the different languages around it. You need to be able to speak retail. You need to be able to speak legal around it to the extent that you need to be able to interface with your lawyers and other people's lawyers. You need to be able to speak military. You need to be able to speak. And then a lot of it is like, okay, how do we take the way that ketones feel? And then how do we design packaging that evokes that feeling? Like what colors on the packaging are going to suggest of the way that a ketone will make you feel? So, because everything all needs to be in line. Like there's that one pearl, but it needs to,
how you see it, how you read it, how you touch it, how you feel it, how you think it.
Yeah.
All has to hit.
1,000%. It's that synesthesia is how I would think about it, where like some people, synesthesia is an actual psychological condition where like you hear the number 4 and you see green in your mind. It's like, or you hear you read something, you hear a certain sound. It's like your senses are kind of crossed.
Like you hear sounds and smell colors kind of stuff.
Right. I think you have to be a little bit that way in order to really put a company together. It's like the way that your brand looks needs to match with how it tastes, needs to match with how it sounds like. And otherwise you're a fake. Otherwise it's like if you're saying one thing on your website, but then I pick up the packaging and it doesn't match to that, like you're saying you work with elite operators and your packaging is Bush League, like something's not adding up. Or if you say you're a value brand and you're really affordable and then and like easy to access, and then in order to buy from your website, I have to fill out a bunch of weird forms that are confusing. It like something doesn't match up there. And so the very first thing that you have to do is like you have to figure out what your actual like pearl is. Like if every meeting, if every surface area of your brand, you're kind of trying to reinvent it, or you're not sure what your values are, or you're not sure what the reason is that you even exist, then you're going to end up with this weird wonky brand where like your emails look this way, but your social media looks this way, but your packaging looks this way. Cause like you are indecisive as a leader. Like in no sense, my job is extremely boring. Cause like it's the same pearl and I just talk about it across so I know how to speak designer with my design team.
Exactly.
I know how to speak retail with my retail team, and it's all the same thing. And I'm just translating it from Italian to French to Mandarin, but it's the same thing.
Yeah. What do you see going right in my words, not yours, I'll say wellness, performance, human optimization world, whether that's through a supplement or a biohack or whatever? I kind of have been putting you guys in this bucket. Again, please correct me if I'm wrong here, but that's how I interpret your branding, the mission, how you live your life. And I think there are a lot of people hungry for that out there. I personally view where we are, especially in like the wellness world, is I think we are finally shedding the like I said earlier, like I have to be this dieter in order to have these results and to have this lifestyle. I need to have this type of business in order to be this successful. I need to have this type of partner to have this type of quality of life. Do you, because you're in it, do you see that happening? Do you see from a product point, a branding point, and what you're hearing, seeing from your consumers, are we finally getting there to where we can all just be like, hey, we are humans wanting to just think, feel, perform, act, be our best?
Yeah. We're losing a lot of the dogma of like, okay, I got to do this in order to get this certain outcome.
Yeah.
One trend I really like is hardware, is the wearables. Like I'm wearing an Oura Ring and a Garmin. You're wearing
an
a bunch.
Apple Watch.
Yeah.
I got my levels coming. I'm due for another one.
Perfect. Yeah. I was going to say levels. Awesome. I think everyone should know how their blood biomarkers are responding to their diet and their behavior. And I think that's taking a lot of the like what you were describing, like, oh, I read a blog post or someone said I got to do this diet to get this certain outcome. It's like, you can just directly see what your heart rate variability is, which is like a marker for how stressed you are. You can see how your sleep score is. You can see what your blood glucose is. And you can more directly see like, hey, what happens when I change one aspect of my life? How does the output I care about change? Like, does it or does it not? If I do more weightlifting, does X marker change? If I do more of this,
you can see who you are before you change who you are without having to change who you are to become who you think you are.
Right. Yeah, it's really, that's really well
all
said.
These quantitative and qualitative measures.
Yeah. And the ability to see that. So you're not just like reading a blog post, oh, people say that if I do XYZ diet, something will happen. It's like, no, you can actually just see for yourself. Different people are different too, by the way. So you can see, hey, like you can send your cheek swab to 23andMe and get your genetic test, and you can plug that into Athletogen and like see what kind of, how you respond to different types of exercise.
Or, what's this other one I've been hearing about? Inside Track.
Yeah. And so you can objectively see how you're doing. I think that's changing. We're in the nutrition. I'm in the nutrition business specifically, but we're definitely all climbing the same hill. It's like the hardware side is, I think, super interesting. One of my friends from college works at Abbott, and they have this thing called Project Lingo, where they're working on the next generation of blood biomarker wearables, like similar to Levels.
Oh, okay.
I think Levels, their core hardware might be made by Abbott. Like Levels obviously has like a ton of amazing UX on top of it, but I think their core sensor is Abbott. At least it was when I tried it.
The actual glucose monitor, the actual piece.
Right.
Yeah.
So that same company, they're now working on a continuous ketone monitor. They're working on a continuous lactate monitor. They're working on one that does the same for like blood alcohol. So it's cool because if you fast forward like 5-10 years, I think you're going to have a dashboard for how you're doing. Like when you're driving in your car and it's like, what's the oil? What's the temperature of the engine? What speed are you going? How many miles have you done? Like all that stuff, but just for your own self. Yeah. All of a sudden it's like, I think we've been in a weird chapter of food for the last couple of decades where it doesn't necessarily look like the food that your grandma used to eat, but it's not necessarily like food of the future quite yet. Like it's a lot of like marketing of stuff that like isn't clear that it's better for you than the stuff that your grandma used to eat. And I think the next wave, kind of like 2020, 2030, like going forward is going to, like, you're not going to be able to bullshit consumers anymore because they're going to be able to see like, hey, that doesn't affect my blood ketones, or that doesn't affect my HRV, or it does, right? Like people are going to be able to see how the food that they're eating is affecting them. And I think that there's going to be a separating of the wheat from the chaff, especially in brands that talk about performance nutrition. Like what is it? You say performance nutrition, but you just have like it's a candy bar that's like wrapped up to look all cool. But like, it's not doing anything.
It's not what it says it is.
Right.
Yeah. I'm so glad you brought up all those things, because actually I just realized I'm an actual idiot. The one day I didn't wear my Apple Watch too. I was like, oh yeah, I'm double dipping. I normally have an Apple Watch on over here, but the Whoop for sure. But my audience has heard me talk about this stuff for years. I'm a big fan of the quantified self, but measuring quantitative and qualitative data. Like, what do the numbers say? What does my Apple Watch tell me in terms of my physical activity? What does my Whoop tell me in terms of my HRV, my sleep, my continuous glucose monitor, whatever you use? Plus, like, how do I feel? How do I feel about when I see the number on my Whoop score? How do I feel just in general when I wake up? after sleep, after a workout. How do you marry the quantified self with the qualitative version, quantified data and qualitative data?
Yeah, it's interesting you said that, because the more I've interacted with super elite athletes, like world champion golfers, triathletes, basketball players, like it's kind of counterintuitive from what you'd expect, but they are very dialed into how they feel.
Mm-hmm.
They have access to everything. They have they can wear every Whoop. They can have a trainer that just looks at their Whoop score and clicks on things. They have access to every single bit of data, and yet they become actually quite intuitive around it. Like that feel of like, if you're feeling a little off today, like maybe adjust your workout schedule. Like don't do the hardest session of the week today if you're not on. And the best athletes, what I've seen is they are completely down to break from whatever the like objective algorithm is saying that their workout needs to be, or like what they need to, they got to spend 30 minutes in zone 4. It's like, that's all the like kind of guiding spine, but they do not hesitate to override it based on feel.
Look at, what was it? Gabrielle, the Olympic gymnast that she stopped last year. She stopped because
Simone
of her
Biles.
Excuse me. Yes. Simone. Yeah. She stopped because of she felt her mental health was off.
Right.
She felt like, I'm just not feeling it.
Right.
Like at the Olympics.
Right. She's like, nah, I'm not feeling it. Yeah. Which I think is respect. I think it's like, what is she supposed to go out there and like twist her knee? Like, you know what I mean? Like if she was not up for it on that day, it's like, I think that surprised a lot of people, but I don't think it should. Cause I think that you're like, when you're at that level, like you're so calibrated, like half of the game is staying alive. Half the game is like not twisting your knee off or like overdoing it on a certain session. Like if you have that spidey sense that, hey, today's not the day, like you're in the cockpit, right? And like, I don't think any of the people criticizing her have ever performed at that elite of a level of gymnastics, let alone like even most, like anything. There's only so many people who can be like gold medal status in the world at literally anything. So I think there were a lot of kind of armchair critics on that I don't know if they were totally fair to her, to be honest.
I would agree. I mean, but like, that was just a big example that came to mind, what you were talking about. I think it's such an important point.
Yeah.
Like we use these data points, we use these wearables, we go to facilities, we use technology to help us understand the self, to optimize the self. But then ultimately, at least for me, like I truly get this innate knowing of the self. And then the knowing can kind of take over sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really good. I think like when you wear levels, you can you can develop a lot of intuition about when do you feel good? And then you look and you see what's your blood glucose at? Oh, I'm really sleepy. What's my blood glucose been at? Or I feel really like, I don't know, like you can sometimes feel when you're like overdoing it. It's like almost like a high blood pressure type of feeling. Like you can feel, and you look at your levels, and sure enough, it's like really high. But I think I don't work for levels, but or Whoop or any of these hardware companies. But we've
had Dr. Casey on the show before. We can have her clear anything.
No, she's amazing. I think that the point is that you dial in your intuition. Like you learn what 10,000 steps feels like. And then do you need to count 10,000 steps for every day for the rest of your life? Or is it like, hey, I know what an active day feels like. And now that's like loaded into my intuitive mind and it's part of who I am. And I don't know if you need, I think that counting your 10,000 steps every day for 30, 60, 90 days, probably awesome. And then you update your firmware and then that's part of who you are. And then you move on to the next one of like sleep optimization. Okay, let me understand. Let me really like measure my sleep, see what I'm responding to. Oh, blackout curtains. Oh, no screens before bedtime. Oh, like don't have like, dessert or booze or whatever is really frying my sleep score.
Anything after 9 p.m. screws your sleep.
Yeah, just don't do anything after 9. Just be a monk. Like sit on your hands and sing yourself a song.
Seriously.
Read a book. And so you learn those things and then you develop the intuition and then like, okay, do you need to like precisely measure your sleep score every day for the rest of your life? I don't know. I think it's interesting though, to always be to like cycle through a few of these, like to do, let me do the footsteps thing. Let me update my firmware to live a more active life. Let me do the sleep thing. Let me do the glucose thing.
Yeah. Let me get a pulse check. Like, let me actually like, am I being honest with myself? Am I really spot on or am I super far off?
Right. Like a lot of people maybe think that they're being more active than they are, or they think that they're their sleep quality is really good, but it's not like, and so having the objectivity, I don't think you can just go on intuition. Like I think that the objectivity is important. Like you should not just try to intuit what your blood glucose is. Like
we're not quite there yet.
Not quite there yet. Like you got to
feel when you get hangry or like a crash kind of thing. But yeah, I can't, I think I'm hovering around 114. That explains a lot.
The people who I know who are really good at that, it's because they've like habitually measured it and like they're so in tune because they've seen the objective read on their blood glucose monitor for so long that like they can then just feel it out. But it's always like, it's like a lot of training on it where they're, okay, I feel like I've seen people who are like, yeah, I'm in ketosis. I can feel it. And then they'll like do a finger prick and they're in ketosis.
Someone who, runs a brand and lives the life of performance and optimization. Can you maybe share what's one or two things where for you, I know if I do these things, this one thing or a couple of things, it is going to improve, like it improves my cognition. It improves my HRV. Like, have you kind of found your hacks for performance and optimization?
For sure. I'm really into intermittent fasting.
Okay.
I've done a bunch of different experiments around. I've done a 7-day fast.
Wow.
For a long time, I was doing a 36-hour fast once a week. I actually really like that. It's something I would get see getting back to if I ever like dialed down the training volume. I think it's hard to be like running a lot and fasting. I think it's like not a good idea actually. But I think if you go to the more like normal level of working out, I think a regular fast is good. What I do now is an eating window, like 8-hour eating window, do all of my material calories within 8 hours or 6 hours and have the other 16 hours of the day to just give my metabolism a break, like clear out what I ate. I think having some constraints, because we live in this world of like abundant calories and nutrition everywhere. I think having some constraints around it just helps so much. I even try to go like OMAD, like 1 meal a day OMAD. Like I just like have like a big kind of late lunch, early dinner and just eat like everything and
all the things.
Yeah. Like, I mean, within reason, but it's like, I'll have like a lot of salmon, a lot of whatever. And not be like snacking constantly, not even like think about it. It's like not even on the radar. Like, cause one thing I learned when I was doing the 7-day fast is that a lot of times our decisions around food are motivated out of boredom, not actual hunger. It's like, we want to feel something. We want some joy. We want some dopamine hit. Like you're not actually hungry.
Yeah. I need a change state.
Yeah. Like I'm feeling this way. I want to feel better. And I think one thing I got out of the 7-day fast was the ability to like kind of see that and control. And it's like, I don't think I'm actually hungry right now. I think I'm just bored or feeling stressed about how that call went or whatever. And I'm able to dance around it more. So I think fasting, I think some amount of like eating window, intermittent fasting window is really good. I have a simple rule: just do something active every day. I mean, for me, I'm like running my normal run is like an 8-mile run. Like that's my thing. And if I'm not doing that, I'm doing like weights or yoga or something. I think it's a very easy rule actually. Just do something active every day. And you can decide for yourself what that means. Like, even if I'm not doing anything, I'll still like go for a walk, like do something. It's like, and there's something about having it be an everyday thing where I don't know what I'm sure there's a good word for it, but it's easier to do something 100% of the time than like 90% of the time. As soon as it becomes
part of you, becomes part of your rituals.
Yeah. And as soon as it's part of your rituals, it's not like is this one of the like 1 in 10 days I don't? Is this one of the like,
it's another thing for me to keep up with. Is an on day or an off day?
Yeah. Versus no, it's like, it's a day. So it's an on day. Yeah.
Well, these are the things that we talk about on Everforward Radio when I say to live a life Everforward. These little things that we can test, we can measure, quantitative, qualitative, no doubt pull something from your story, what works for you, and try it. I always say also, N equals 1, be a study of 1. This is what I'm talking about when I say live a life Everforward. But I'm curious, what does that mean to you? When you hear those two words, how do you live a life Everforward?
I think a beautiful life is one where you're taking who you are and you're putting it out into the world. And you should always be making forward progress to that. So when I hear Everforward, it's like, okay, who are you? Like, what are your values? What do you think is beautiful in the world? Like, what are your aesthetics in the world? And are you always moving towards that? And I think a lot of people have entered a period of malaise around work where it's like, I don't like work. I hate capitalism, or I hate the world, or I hate this and that. I think that work can be beautiful. I think if you're writing the next great American novel, or you're making the next Joe Rogan show here, like you're making the next great thing, you're the architect of the Golden Gate Bridge or some super cool structure. I think that's beautiful. And I think that we've lost that like magic of taking who you are. What do you think is nice in the world? And like, go and like do more of that. Like amplify the signal that you like in the world. Make more of that happen out there. Like you've seen things that are like beautiful, that have taken your breath away. Like what can you do to put more of that out into the world for other people to see? And like to me, that's where I know in my bones, like if I, like no matter how things go career-wise, like I'm never gonna put work down. Like I need to always be, I'm always in that flow, like always going forward, to use your words, like ever forward towards some sense of putting more out into the world. Was beautiful. And
love what you said. And plus I'll just say that I think like acknowledge that we live in a time in the world, in history, where like that is not only first and foremost okay. For so long, humans felt suppressed to even say that out loud or to act on what lit us up or what we thought was beautiful. But we have so much at our fingertips, with a cell phone or a camera these days, you can create that right here, right now. So it doesn't have to just be a dream in your head.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a really cool time to be alive. Like there's just so much at our fingertips. Yeah.
Well, dude, pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much. Super big fan of this now. Love it. Now, hell, I might even found my new interview superpower too. Yeah, this was good. So good. Thank you.
I enjoyed it.